Welcome to the Book Club Life. Today we have an awesome author interview. And if you're new to the show, when we do author interviews, we talk a little bit about how we know each other, and then we ask book club questions that the author gets to answer. In this case, our amazing Joanne Bischof.
Hi.
And so instead of being at your book club, she will answer the questions. And then we'll do a just for fun round. And we won't always do this, but today we are also doing a giveaway for one of Joanne's books. So that will be exciting. And if you're interested in that, make sure you check the description to see how to enter. And let's begin. So Joanne, I'm so excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Well, I first heard about you when I saw everybody all over social media talking about Charlie.
Oh, Charlie.
Yes. And and it also won a ton of awards. Didn't this one get the Romantic Times pick?
It got 5 stars from Romantic Times.
The 5-star review.
Yes.
Which, not every book does. And you also won a Christie Award for it. This is actually a paper because I did it on my Kindle, but this is what it looks like. And I read it and I loved it. It was so good. It was probably my favorite circus book, but it's so much more than that. It's an amazing love story. And everybody's like, yeah, and way more. So many people have read it. So that was my first introduction to you. And then I saw you on a Facebook Live that you did, and I just loved you. I loved your personality. And then recently, somebody told me that this book was their favorite that they had read all of last year. And so I put it on my Audible, and I flew right through it and loved it, which I talk about that in an early episode. So I won't go too much into that. And then today we're going to be talking about Daughters of Northern Shores, and my printer cut off the top and the bottom. That was also on Audible.
It's the abridged version.
Yes. But it was so good. I loved it. And I just really, you just did such a good job, and I felt inspired. And one thing about, since I've been writing as well as reading, sometimes it's harder to get into the story just because you're thinking of how you would do it, or trying to learn, or just the pressure of life, because instead of just having all this free time, you're using your free time to write. But both of these totally sucked me in, and I loved them. So
Thank you so much. I love hearing that, especially from another writer.
Yes. Okay, so let's get right into our book club questions.
Sounds good.
In both books, in Daughters of Northern Shores and The Sons of Blackbird Mountain, both of those have a character that deals with a disability. And do you think it would be a spoiler if I say what it is? Okay, so he's deaf, and you did it so well. I have to ask you, how did you do it so well? Do you know somebody like that in real life? What was your inspiration for that?
Ooh, that's a good question. It was when I was at summer camp as a teenager, high school summer camp. Every year, this brother and sister would come, and they would join our church from far away where they lived. And he was deaf. And so each year at summer camp, I always enjoyed getting the chance to see them again and seeing him kind of sitting by himself. And he was always, of course, very quiet. And few people would go over and talk to them because you don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it.
Right.
And so sometimes I would sit with him and his sister, and she was always signing. She was always translating the worship music. She would get a chair and face him, in this auditorium of probably 1,000 high school students. She would face him and she would sign the message. And it just really sparked my curiosity and sort of awareness of realizing that we can connect with people who are deaf, or people even maybe who have something that's inhibiting our ability to talk.
Right.
And so I would learn little signs from them, and really just the alphabet. You can get by on the alphabet. And so he would be very patient as I slowly finger spelled questions if I didn't know the words. And so from that, I began to take classes. And just, I took them in high school and then junior college. And then knowing some of what I learned about the deaf culture, and like some of my professors were deaf. I remember I had one professor, and he would always say voices off. And, he wouldn't talk because he was deaf. And so knowing those people in those little ways had me wanting to write a deaf character someday. and I didn't know when or where it would be. And so when the idea for Sons of Blackbird Mountain came, it just suddenly, there was Thor and he was deaf, and it was going to be that time. So I was excited.
Wow. Well, it was a really neat dynamic. And I think it even added to the romance somehow, just their secret world, you know, or his secret world with anybody who would take the time to join it, you know.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love that you picked up on that. And I think, you know, when to take out talking and to take out communication, any kind of that, it does kind of make it a little more romantic, because it's like a nonverbal relationship.
Right.
So there's some sweet nuances that they both do to try and connect with the other person. So.
Right. Definitely. So there's one scene. Okay, next question. There's one scene in the book where there's been some graffiti on the barn, the side of the barn, and somebody is scraping it off, and another character is off to the side watching it, and she says, that being healed of hurts in our life is like that. You can remove the paint and you can scrape it off, but the grooves and the reminders remain.
Yes.
So what hurt have you overcome in life, and how have you healed from that? How does that apply to you?
Yes, yes. Let's see. Writing that scene was probably one of my favorites of you know, the KKK has sort of, you know, painted a warning across the barn. And as he's scraping and as those other characters are observing, and they're focusing in on the hurt that one of them experienced at the hands of this other character, it really, there were scenes in there that were tricky for me to write, but that were in a lot of ways healing, because I was able to take some of the trials that I was going through, and when I can put them into a character, I can put them into even a conversation that two characters have. I can tell myself things that I might not, I don't want to say believe otherwise, but something about showing it on the page, showing these characters live it out, it kind of drives it home for me, the truths. And often I find that it's truths that I need to hear, or it's truths that I need to learn. And so that one is, I'm a single mom, as a lot of my readers are aware of. And so it's just healing from that hurt of loss, and of that brokenness that happened. And so God has really, really, really come alongside me and showed me the supply of his provision, and how much he cares for me, how much he cares for my children, and the ways that he has provided for us. And so it's been a journey of the heart. And while I was writing Sons of Blackbird Mountain, it was all very, very fresh. And so it all had just kind of been happening. And so it's one of the reasons why I think that book began to take on the shape that it took on, of you know, these men kind of defending these women in their lives, and protecting their farm, and standing up for truth. And so it's like it all just kind of poured out into that story. And of course it transferred over to Daughters of Northern Shores, and it was a good process for me of healing.
That's good. I thought it was a very powerful, not totally, I mean, it was pretty subtle. You could easily just read or write on past it. But I think that's the same in our lives. We can easily just go right on living. But there is opportunity for healing from those deep hurts. And they do leave a scar. But then you know how that feels. And it's one area that you're usually, at least you have the opportunity to make sure you don't do that to someone else. You know, like I think of my scars in my life, the way I've been treated a few times. And it did leave a scar. I'm healed of it. But you remember, you know, and so, okay, I don't want to be that person to anybody else, you know, with whatever words were said, or a friendship that was, you know, betrayal or whatever. So I thought that was a very powerful part of the story.
Thank you. And that's so wise, when we can take those trials and learn from them. And I think we wouldn't learn the lessons if we didn't face the hardships. And that's the hard part about it.
Right. Yes, I know. It's like, I don't want my kids to have any trials, but I do want them to learn how to treat people and how it feels not to do it.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's one scene where they're talking of battles and war, and somebody makes the statement that sometimes the battle is between hope and fear. So that is so true, and we all have tons of instances where we can choose fear or hope. So how do you make sure that hope wins? How do you choose hope and not be afraid in your life?
I think it's funny, but my mind goes back to the interview you did with Jocelyn and how she was talking about some of the depression that she experienced. And I've been in a similar place of that. And so what she talked about was just, choosing joy, choosing hope, and that, the next day and the next day, and just keep going.
Right.
And there's been times when, fear and pain just kind of want to overwhelm me, or I think a lot of people feel that way as well. And so when we cling to hope and just realizing that God does not promise that the life is going to be smooth, that he is with us, but he has promised that he's going to be with us, and that we have so much reward and so much rich bounty and pasture, and that he has for us. And so it's in seeing that through the trials where I think our hope comes. And the thing about whether it's depression or anxiety is that when we lock on to our fears and our focus just narrows very small down to what that fear is, we lose perspective and we lose joy. And I remember when I was really, really discouraged, I remember I couldn't even hear birds chirping. I couldn't even feel the sun shining, and it was hard to smile. And all these beautiful joys of life were sort of faded away into these shades of gray because I stopped feeling them. And I had zoomed in so closely on my pain and my hurts and my fears. Yeah. And so God in his mercy helped me through this season to see that there's so much to be thankful for, and that our hope is always there.
That is so good. That is so good. It's so easy to just look right at the thing, but I love it when God just kind of says, look up, look at me.
Exactly.
This is one little thing.
Exactly.
That's good. Okay, another scene that I was like, wow, this is really good, was there's a childbirth in there. And I thought you described it so well. My first kid, I delivered without any epidural, without even a Tylenol. And so I was like, yep. So what was your research for that? And do you want to share one of your birthing experiences?
Absolutely. That scene, that's the second birthing scene that I've written in all of my books that's on the page. And I always try and get the overall, the intensity and the I don't want to say the pain, but, it's painful across on the page without totally tormenting the reader, making it graphic. But I really wanted them to experience Avin's sort of her pain and the hardship that she was facing in that moment, because with Sons of Blackbird Mountain, so much of the theme was the courage that the men have and how they stand up for injustice. And so with Daughters of Northern Shores, where the birthing scene is, showing what these women do to be courageous. Yes. And on the frontier, in the olden days, there was no pain relief like we have it today. Right. And so that was a degree of courage that they had to face frequently. Yes. And so writing that scene was something that I wanted to empower women, not necessarily towards natural childbirth, but just the way that as she's giving birth, she realizes that this room full of women and the ones that are holding her hand and, bringing towels, and they're all up in the night to keep her comfortable and to take care of her and this child. And sort of the courage that these women had, and how they do something special that I think only women can do. And so it was really special to get to write that scene. And I have had 3 children, and 2 of them were natural. And so my last one, funnily enough, was my epidural. He was 9 pounds, 15 ounces. And so something about that experience was I was eager for that epidural. But the first 2, completely natural. And it was my first. He was 35 hours of labor, of back labor. And so I was having a hard time. And I was at a birthing center. And so there was the water, there was the natural compresses and things. But that really tested me, I think, beyond what I could do. But all you can do really is hold on. And so it's funny because within the natural childbirth world, some of the books that I had read about, it's just this peaceful, natural experience. And that's not what I had. It was very difficult. And I know that the books say it's going to be difficult, but it was rougher, and it was rough. And so when it was over, I felt like I had failed. I remember for a couple weeks, I thought, oh, I failed. Even though I, did it and the baby's here and safe, it wasn't a peaceful, joyful experience. And so I had to make peace with it. And it's funny because I like to journal. And by writing it down, just writing the story down, helped me see, you know what, that was a victory. And I worked really hard. And this baby is here and he's safe. Yes. And so sometimes we can compare our stories with other people, and think, it should be like this. And
right.
And just realizing that each of us have a different story and
yes.
we all get through it in a different way.
Yes. And every kid is different.
Every kid is different.
Every birth is different. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I did one without the epidural, the other two. I was planning to do the second one without an epidural. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. But yes, it is interesting how we have these ideals in our head, and when we don't meet them, we have to reconcile that because, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But definitely bringing a child into this world is a holy thing. And sometimes, it's popsicles and I don't feel a thing, and sometimes it's a battle. But yeah, so very cool. Another quote that struck me from the book, and it was just in passing. And how do you say, is it Hoken?
It is Hoken.
Okay.
I say Haken often, but it's Hoken.
Okay. The audiobook helped.
I know. She says it right. She says it right. So I have people correcting me all the time.
So Hoken, it's talking about him, and it says Hoken wanted more from this life than what he'd previously had. Mm-hmm. So I thought a good book club question for this book to ask everyone and to ask you is, what do you want from this life?
Oh, that's a good one. The easiest answer that comes to mind is joy. And it really stems from having been in that place of deep discouragement. It tends to be what I call depression. It's just a deep discouragement. It's dark days. Right. And so having been there and having lost my joy, it's funny because I feel like in a lot of ways, I sort of slowly over time surrendered my joy sort of on the altar of not having what I wanted. And God wasn't giving me what I wanted. He wasn't giving me the life I felt like I had worked hard for, that I deserved, or that, if God loves me, he would give me not this life.
Right.
And so I began to just lose my joy. And so all the prayers that I was praying during that season, to try and help God see what I needed. And I felt like he kept withholding not only those things, but even my joy, where when it was restored, it was the greatest gift I had ever been given. And I don't have really a salvation story from when I was younger or, accepting the Lord into my heart. But I've always been a believer as far as I can remember. I was raised in a Christian home. And so I often thought that I didn't have much of a testimony, when you don't have maybe a come to faith story that you can recall. And it was that experience of losing my joy and then having it restored, where it made me I want to say I was 34 for the first time in my life. And for the first time as being a Christian, I saw what I was being saved from. I saw firsthand the darkness that God rescues us from. And so I think it was his way of giving me that experience to say, this is what I'm going to pluck you out of. And once I felt the sun shining again, I thought, I never want to lose this.
Right.
So it's taught me to keep, my goals and dreams. It's important to have those, but to also cultivate contentment and gratitude for what we have.
I think that is so wise. And, we all have temptations for discontentment in a multitude of ways. And sometimes it's through really hard things. And sometimes it's through, I've been trying so hard for this and it hasn't happened. Laura France said something to me once that I was like, oh, that's good. I need to make sure I do that. She just said, make sure you enjoy the journey, And I feel like that's something that probably a lot of mentors say to other people is just enjoy the journey. This whole life is a journey. It's not about, what your circumstances look like. It's about just taking each day with the Lord and just enjoying him and doing the work that's set before you and enjoying the blessings that you're given.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I love Laura. I love her.
Yes, I do too.
She was my buddy at the Christie Awards this last year, where she won.
Yes.
Where I got to hand it to her, and she and I getting ready for the awards before it started. We were at my Airbnb, and it was so fun because she was in my room and I was in the bathroom, and it felt like we were junior hires getting ready for the dance. And my dad took pictures of us in the hallway, and it was really fun.
Very fun. Yes, I saw that actually. I watched it. I think it was on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So last book club question, then we'll get to the fun questions. Even though I'm having fun on these too. So Ida, one of the characters, says to another, "Know that wherever you go, I'll be praying always, so long as I have breath." And she's kind of that character. She's kind of that help solid. She's that solid person for more than one character in the book. Who is that in your life?
Definitely my mom. She has that kind of seasoning that Ida has, and she's such a prayer warrior, and she's always reminding me of just faith and courage and where we place our focus. And I love it because when we were growing up, she used to teach us. She would literally, as we were driving to school in the car, stop the car and have us look at the clouds. Do you see that sky? Do you see the clouds? Do you see the sun? And we're like, Mom, we're going to be late. And now I do that. Now I pause and I see the glory around us. And that's what she taught us. And she's always praying, always encouraging me. I just adore her. And I think that's where a lot of Ida stemmed from.
That's good. I love that. My mom is awesome too. She's watching my daughter right now, so I can do this interview.
That is so
great. Okay, so now for the just for fun questions. Besides writing, because you're amazing at that, what are you good at? And do you have any talents or hobbies?
Let's see. Something that I am good at. I don't know if I'm good at it, but I love to feed people. I love making food. I love having people over for a tea party or a bowl of soup. So that's kind of my secret love. But something that's a new hobby is dancing. And I just, in the last, probably been about a year and a half, I began partner dancing. And so it's the waltz, or we do swing dancing. I've done the foxtrot, the Charleston. It's really, really fun. I take these classes. And so it's been a good place for me with this season of being single. And I live in the country. It's pretty rural, and it's just been a really fun activity to get out there and do something new and different that I hadn't done. So I haven't done it lately because our roads are closed because we had some storms that washed them away. So we're kind of trapped a little bit more often on our mountain. Out, but you can only leave at certain times of the day, and you can only come home at certain times of the day. Okay. So, I'm home a lot, but that is something I love.
Yeah, that is really neat. I love knowing that about you. I actually met my husband swing dancing.
Very cool.
He was a regular Tuesday nighter, and I was just going with a friend.
He knows the rock step, and so do you.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Besides reading, what fills you with joy?
Oh, this kind of sounds funny, but I'd say nesting. I love to make cozy places for me and the kids to hang out. And that's probably because we homeschool and we're here a lot. But I read a wonderful book not too long ago of, oh my goodness, what is it called? It's by Sally Clarkson, and it is called The Lifegiving Home. Okay. And it's something that I had really struggled with before, just keeping house and sort of seeing it as a place of rest and as a place of refuge. And so in the last couple of years, as the kids and I have kind of reset our footing and gone through this trial, creating those little places of warmth and comfort. And sometimes it would be simple as spreading out an old quilt on the floor, and we'd have a picnic in front of, a movie or something, where having those little spots where we can just snuggle in. And I always love buying quilts so I could drape them on chairs, or candles or stacks of books or whatever. And so Sally Clarkson's, those concepts that she teaches there have really been something that I've enjoyed. And it's funny because I'm not good at decorating, not naturally. And so I have a friend at church, and she loves to decorate, and she always moves her furniture around. And so one day I just said, can you come and help me? And she was so excited because her husband was tired of her moving the furniture. So she's like, I can come and move yours. Oh, so she and a bunch of girlfriends came up, and they helped me. We did 3 rooms of clearing out clutter and moving furniture and hanging, new artwork and putting flowers in vases. And they helped me kind of just freshen up my home when I was in that place of and it just the joy that it brought to us was like, wow, I need to maintain this and keep this life-giving atmosphere going for me and the kids.
Yeah, I love that. I love restful, beautiful places.
Yes.
Which I could really use a little bit more of right now.
I understand.
If I turn the camera, there's laundry, there's piles, there's books that have been made into a train. Yes.
Mine is the same way.
Favorite TV show or movie? Or a couple, if you can't pick.
Ooh, that's good. I love historical dramas. And so I think if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be Sense and Sensibility, the 2008 BBC version.
That's a good one.
I've watched it so many times. If I'm having a bad day or something has, you just need to, like, you're done, I'll pop that on. And the kids just crawl on the bed with me and we'll watch a few hours of Jane Austen. So that's my favorite.
That's a good one. I like that one too. And the Pride and Prejudice one as well.
Yes.
Favorite dessert or candy or snack?
Ooh, that's good. I love them all. That's my problem. So it's definitely chocolate. And I'm trying to have less sugar in my life. And so I discovered these things at the health food store. They even have them in Walmart. It's called Hail Mary. And there's little chocolates. Okay. And they're in the refrigerator section.
Is it dark or milk?
It's kind of dark, but it's natural ingredients, so it just kind of tastes a little more bitter anyway. Okay. And that's kind of my fix to survive being on less sugar and loving chocolate. Yes.
Dark, because it's supposed to be like an antioxidant, a little bit.
It's good for you.
Okay. What would you go back and tell yourself as a teen?
Oh, that's so good. I wrote this one down, and I want to remember what I wrote. So I'm going to take a little peek-ski. It's in the fun questions section. That's what it is. I actually have my little necklace on right here that says it. Have courage and be kind, from Cinderella. I think that is what I would tell myself. And I wore the necklace so I wouldn't forget. And it slipped my mind anyway. But just how much you can accomplish and how much peace you can have and how caring we can be towards other people by having courage and being kind. I feel like I love that quote from that movie. And there were times when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of hardships. I grew up in a really smooth home. My parents were great. And so I didn't understand cultivating gratitude. I didn't have to. I was just thankful because life was good. And so when life suddenly wasn't good, I really struggled. It was like, wait, God, what's going on? And I felt like I didn't know how to handle it. And so I would love to tell the younger me that life isn't going to be easy, but just to remember those two things.
Right. Yeah. Good advice. Cinderella. I like it. Okay. What is a meaningful compliment that you've been given?
Would you say as an adult or as a child?
Anytime.
Let's see. The one that comes to mind is when I was younger. And it's I was actually in 3rd grade. And it's what people sometimes ask me is when I started writing. And it was before then, but it's the earliest memory that I have of a really serious project. It was 3 pages long. And I wrote this little story about this Native American girl and her coyote. It's called The Brave Coyote. And I wrote it, and then my mom had me rewrite it in cursive. And then she made copies of it, and we bound it in those little tab folders, you like bend it. I made 6 copies. It was a really big print run. And we gave it to grandparents, and then I gave it to my teacher, my 3rd grade teacher. And she was so supportive and so encouraging. And she read it over the years, every year to her class. And when I would see her as an adult, she would remind me that, she reads The Brave Coyote every year to her 3rd grade. So that was really touching to me. And it meant a lot. And by my mom having me write it out and the way she made the copies and gave them to the teacher and the grandparents, it's what sort of sparked in me a realization that this is what I wanted to do, because I felt my mom's excitement. And I thought, maybe I could keep, writing stories. Maybe I could keep doing this. And really what her enthusiasm and excitement really set me on that path. And so with my kids, I try and look at their skills and the things that they love to do and to encourage them. I don't always understand everything that they do, especially my son, because he's very engineer-minded.
Right.
He's outside right now digging a trench and laying wire so he can have electricity in his playhouse.
That's cool. I love that.
Stop and be like, great job. You're really doing awesome. It's something I have to tell myself to do often. So that way they feel that same encouragement.
That's good. Well, Joanne, you have been wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm really excited to give away one of your books because it's just going to be such a blessing to whoever gets it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I will have Joanne's website in the description and also links to the books that we talked about. And if you would like to enter the giveaway, what you can do is leave, like the video, subscribe to the show, and then leave a comment right there in YouTube. And you have to be on your computer to leave a comment, I believe. Maybe not. I think I have to be on my computer to leave a comment. But leave a comment telling a compliment you've been given or your favorite dessert, or let's do one of those. And you can also put which book you would choose if you win, because I will let you choose. If you haven't started the series yet, then I will send you, if you win, Sons of Blackbird Mountain. And if you've already read this one, then I will send you Daughters of Northern Shores if you win. So there's just going to be one winner, and I will notify you with a comment if you won. And then from that moment, you'll have 48 hours to respond with your to let me know your email address, and I'll put my contact information in the description as well. And Joanne, thank you so much for being here, and thank you guys for viewing. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.